Welcome to this new tutorial. This time we will learn how to draw a closed eye, and this is the final tutorial in our eye series. To begin, let's break down the structure of the closed eye to make the drawing process easier. So first, to ensure proper placement, we can start by drawing a horizontal line from the left corner. Below this line, we can then sketch a curved line that represents the impression of the closed eyelid. Using this horizontal line as a reference makes the process much easier, especially when drawing the eyelashes and getting the right curvature. By comparing the curve of the eyelashes to the straight line, we can check the spacing and ensure accuracy. This method simplifies the process significantly. When observing the closed eyelid, we can also see that it forms a circular shape. And this shape is clearly visible thanks to the shadow around it, which play a crucial role in giving depth and dimension to the eye. To achieve a realistic result, we need to carefully work on the shadow and highlights to create this volume. Paying attention to this tonal variation will make the drawing more lifelike. And we can see that there is no contour for this curved element. It's only the work on shadow and light that will help us to create this effect. And also what we can see is that before detailing the individual eyelashes, we can first outline them as a simple curved shape. Starting with this general form makes it much easier to manage the structure before refining each lash. Instead of immediately focusing on individual strokes, this step helps create a natural and well-balanced eyelash curve. So these are the main elements to keep in mind when drawing a closed line. And now let's move forward step by step and see how to bring everything together. Drawing a closed eye isn't the most complex task, but careful attention to shading and contrast is essential to create realistic volume in the eyelid area. So let's get started, grab your pencil and begin drawing. Here we are for the final tutorial in the eye series, where this time we'll be learning how to draw a closed eye. I can start by sketching this imaginary line, which you can visualize in the image, and from this line I can draw a small curved line just below it to define the shape of the eyelid more precisely. From there, I can define the shape of the eyelid. There are no clear lines that outline the eyelid shape. However, we can observe certain shadow areas and varying levels of darkness that suggest its form. In our final result, there won't be any defined lines indicating the eyelid. Instead, the shading will help convey its rounded shape. Just above, I can sketch the outline of the eyebrow. This eyebrow will be particularly interesting to work on because the hairs are quite sparse with a low density. This makes it a different type of eyebrow to draw compared to the one we covered in previous tutorials. Next, I can add the different elements beneath the eyelid. For example, I can draw a simple shape that generally defines the placement of the eyelashes. Later, as we add individual lashes, they will take it on their true form. But for now, we can imagine a curved line encompassing all the lashes. The lower eyelid area contains a lot of detail, so I am marking a few lines to define it. For the upper eyelid, I can refine the different shadow areas further, with the left side being slightly darker. And all these lines that I have drawn, I'm going to soften them with my kneaded eraser to make them much less visible before starting the shading process of our eye. Now let's move on to the shading. We'll start with the eyelash area and the surrounding skin because many individual lashes will overlap the skin, so I think it's best to begin with the shading first of this area. One thing to notice is that the skin around the lash area tends to be darker. This is because some part of the skin are beneath the lashes, and as a result the lashes cast shadow, making the skin appear darker. However, as we move toward the right, the area becomes lighter. That's why I didn't apply the same pressure with my pencil on the right side. I had a lighter touch in this area. In the lash area itself, the overall tone is quite dark, but it's not uniformly shaded. Instead, I start with a solid dark base across the entire area, and later I will add the individual lashes on top that are darker. These subtle details and variations in gray tones make all the difference. When learning to draw, it is important to develop an artist's eye, being able to perceive these subtle shades of gray that we might not notice otherwise. So I also shaded the skin area below using my HB pencil with a light touch. And once everything is blended, we can refine the details more precisely. At this stage, I'm going to blend everything with my blending stump to create a smooth surface, which will allow us to add texture and fine details in the next step. Now I can start adding texture to the skin below the eye. To make it more realistic, we can observe that in the corner of the eye, the texture appears as fine, short lines with slight variations in tone. So I add these details carefully, paying close attention to their direction and darkness before drawing them. And as we move toward the central area, the direction of these elements changes slightly compared to the left side, so I adjust a little bit my pencil strokes to match my reference as closely as possible. The movement of our pencil strokes is crucial, so it's important to be precise, to be accurate. In the inner corner of the eye on the left, we see some darker details, so I will also add them in. At this stage, the drawing may not look like much, but once I have added all the eyelashes, I'm confident that everything will come together. Patience is key, trust the process, and once all the elements are in place, we can assess whether it looks right or needs adjustment. On the right side, I will also add some texture later on, but since this area on the right is much lighter, the details will be more subtle, so I will use only a few light strokes to suggest texture. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that to enhance the three-dimensional effect and create a sense of volume in the skin details, I can use my precision eraser to refine the highlight. And finally, an important note, it's not necessary to replicate every single detail down to the millimeter. The goal is to create a texture that resembles a real skin, but if a few elements are slightly different, it's not a big deal at all. Now we can start working on the eyelashes. The first thing to notice is that on the upper part, at least up to the center, there is a very dark line that stands out more than the rest, so I make sure to drawing it using my 14B pencil. Next, I focus on placing the darkest eyelashes in the area, since as we have seen, not all the lashes have the same value. On the left side, I identify some particularly dark lashes and draw them. Before that, I also observe their thickness. Some appear darker because multiple small hairs are clumped together, so I carefully sketch them, paying attention to their direction. Up to about the middle, the eyelashes follow a certain curve, but I notice a shift in direction, so I'm going to adjust it accordingly. I'm also going to switch to a 6B pencil because the central area contains slightly lighter elements, making 6B a good choice. I can also use it for the right side. On the extreme right side right here, we can see that some hair are also lighter. Now I go back to a 10B pencil because as we reach the right side, even though the lashes are still dark, they are slightly lighter than those on the left. That's why I find the 10B to be the right tool for this area. Another important detail to note is that some eyelashes start out very dark at the base but become slightly lighter toward the tip. To achieve this effect, I reduce the pressure on my pencil as I reach the lower part of each eyelash, making the ends appear slightly softer and more natural. Now we can shade the skin and eyelid area. I start with the slightly darker corner on the left, and since this is one of the darkest area, I decide that an 8B pencil would be a good choice for establishing a base. However, since this will be the darkest part, I then switch to something lighter. A 4B pencil seems like a good choice, a good option because it provides me some darkness but isn't as intense as 8B. So I continue shading with the 4B, and on the left side I am still using the 4B but with a lighter touch compared to this middle section. Then with a similar light touch I shade the right side using the 4B as well, since this area is slightly darker than the central zone where I am going to apply an HB base. If you are enjoying this video, know that there are many more waiting for you. On my website, you will find dozens of hours of real-time drawing lessons. We cover all the main topics, the fundamentals to get started, portraits, the human body, animals, and perspective to build entire scenes. Each tutorial is guided from start to finish, as if you were drawing right by my side. You will learn how to correct your mistakes, how to gain precision, and give more strength to your drawings. So if you want to improve and explore all these drawing courses, click on the link in the description. Otherwise, let's get back to this video. And finally, I shade the skin area above the eyelid. Here I will use a 2B pencil because it is just a bit darker than the central area we worked on earlier. And once all of this will be blended, I will refine the details within the area to achieve a more realistic texture. But even at this stage, just by carefully applying the right grayscale tones, we can already create a sense of volume in the area, which is a great result. Now I am going to add the details within the eyelid area. So I start with the darker elements using a 12B pencil. Along the lash line there are some well-defined creases, so I make sure to include those. Moving on to the rest of the eyelid, we can see that this area has a lot of texture. There are many small dark elements and at times they seem to form lines. However, these aren't perfectly straight lines. Rather, they are made up of small scribbles and marks placed next to each other, creating the illusion of lines without them actually being rigid or defined. And by layering these tiny scribbles together, we achieve a natural looking skin texture. On the right side, the area is much more illuminated, with stronger light hitting the surface. Because of this, I want my texture details to be more subtle and less prominent. To achieve this, I switch to a lighter pencil, but my technique will remain the same. I continue adding small scribbles and scattered marks, ensuring the texture remain consistent but softer in appearance. At this stage, we can see that just a few well-placed pencil strokes have completely transformed the texture, making it look significantly more realistic. And this is a great sign, and I will continue refining the details in this area. And overall, the eyelid is nearly complete, and it stands out nicely from the surrounding skin. And finally, for the finishing touch, I use my precision eraser to add subtle highlights. I place lighter details right next to the dark elements I previously added, and these small highlights help certain areas stand out, enhancing the three-dimensional effect and making the texture look even more realistic. So I carefully observe where these lighter details naturally appear, and with gentle strokes here and there I add them in. This step is like the cherry on top. It brings the whole area to life and ensures that the eyelid looks as realistic as possible. Before working on the detailed texture of my eyebrows and individual hairs, I start by shading the underlying skin tone that will appear beneath the eyebrow hairs. But before focusing entirely on that, I take a moment to refine my eyelashes as I notice that some elements could be slightly improved. Some lashes seemed a little bit too short or not dark enough. One technique I like to use to check if my eyelashes or even my entire drawing looks right is to view my drawing in a mirror. This method is incredibly effective because any mistakes become immediately apparent at a glance. In this case, I felt that the eyelash area needed a bit more refinement. Now back to the eyebrows, I begin by drawing the lighter hairs first because when looking closely at the reference photo, we can see that the eyebrows are not uniform. They contain various shades of gray and black, with some hairs appearing much darker than others. So I start by placing the lighter elements. When drawing eyebrows, one of the key aspects I focus on is the direction of the hairs. The hairs on the right side of the eyebrow don't follow the same orientation as those on the left. To create a realistic effect, it is essential to capture this natural variation and give the eyebrows a natural flow. Once the lighter hairs are in place, I move on to the darker ones. Some of these hairs are longer, while others will be shorter, so I pay attention to all these differences to achieve an optimized and realistic result. So now, like I said, I'm going to add these darker single hairs. I am adding a few final details because I felt not completely satisfied with the area, so I extend some eyelashes slightly, refining their shape, and I will also make a few adjustments with my precision eraser to enhance certain elements, and once that is done, everything will be in place, marking the end of this tutorial. So that concludes this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and that it was helpful. And if you'd like to take your skills even further, I truly encourage you to join us on the website mentioned in the description. You will get access to all the drawing and painting courses to help you make real progress in your artwork. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you very soon in a new video.